this issue about I want it, it's all mine, and pushing us to the point where we had to consider fractures in NATO. And I've spoken to US diplomats about this. It's very unfortunate because it puts a strain on all of us, and makes you start having to wonder about navigating a world where the US is not a friend.
Great news. Donald Trump has said there will be peace in the world as he launches a new body aimed at ending global conflicts. The Board of Peace was initially designed to oversee the ceasefire in Gaza, but the US president has now suggested it can have a broader role. Here he is speaking at Davos in the last hour.
We're committed to ensuring Gaza is demilitarized, properly governed, and beautifully rebuilt. It's going to be a great plan, and that's where the Board of Peace really started. And I think we can spread out to other things as we succeed with Gaza. We're going to be very successful in Gaza. It's going to be a great thing to watch, and we can do other things. We can do numerous other things. Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do, and we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations.
Well, Trump was joined on stage by the leaders of Argentina and Hungary, among others, who signed the new agreement alongside him after his speech. The UK has said it will not sign on to the board today. The Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper explained the decision on BBC Breakfast.
We won't be one of the signatories today because this is about a legal treaty that raises much broader issues, and we do also have concerns about President Putin being part of something which is talking about peace when we have still not seen any signs from Putin that there will be a commitment to peace in Ukraine.
Well, I'm joined now by Michael Stevens, Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. Michael, good morning.
Hi, Hugo.
To the best of our understanding, what is the point of Donald Trump's Board of Peace? Would it be any more effective than the United Nations in doing what it's supposed to be intended to do, which is, I guess, end global conflicts?
Well, it could be useful if you have a range of countries on any interested issue that have leverage. The problem is that it's clearly been designed by the US, will be run and structured by the US, and will work along the preferences that the US has, which, frankly speaking, most of us don't really know what those are. The fact that you also have to pay $1 billion, I think it is, to gain membership is pretty unprecedented. It feels to me like it's a sort of pay for play and a pay for access, kind of like an international Mar-a-Lago, right? So you've just got to stump up a lot of money to get access to the big guy at the top, get your preferences involved. What I have read into this, apart from Trump's rhetoric, which I don't pay much attention to, is that this is essentially a way of staying in his good books, showing that you support his view of the world and that you want to remain close to him on a personal and political level. The question of things like Gaza still remains. We can talk about that later, but moving into phase 2 of Gaza is really difficult. Demilitarizing Hamas is really difficult. A board of peace doesn't ensure that that happens, for example. Ukraine, the issues don't go away because you have a board of peace. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on all of this, but I do think it's very complicated, and this is about political signaling rather than reality.
I mean, with Gaza having been one of the most remaining one of the most intractable conflicts the world has seen, is there an argument that actually if you do try and replicate the way peace of a sort at least has been brought to Gaza, you could sort of transfer that into other conflicts, which presumably has to be the idea?
I think it depends which conflicts. You're looking at the Russia-Ukraine situation. It's I don't see how it changes unless Zelensky feels that he has enough strength by which he can go to his own people and say, I've resisted Putin, they won't advance any further, I want guarantees from the Europeans, I want to join NATO, all these things. I mean, it's not related to a board of peace. And with Gaza, I come back to my basic point. How do you demilitarize Hamas? I don't care what Hungary thinks about Hamas. Sorry. But, you've got to give me a roadmap for how you are going to solve the micro problems on the ground. I don't dismiss Trump's efforts, by the way. I think that we would not have got to a ceasefire in Gaza without him. I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but this seems to me a lot of style and not much substance.
As I said at the beginning, Yvette Cooper has said that Britain won't join the board, at least today. What should our red lines be on this? I mean, is it basically the fact that it's got Vladimir Putin in it?
I think that's a big stumbling block. Obviously you have to talk to enemies as well as friends. And I don't, dismiss the fact that we will have to talk to the Russians at some point if we are to de-escalate what is a very difficult moment in our bilateral relationship. You may have noticed that we just had a diplomat thrown out of Moscow. Things are still bubbling away in the background, almost at the level of the Cold War, or at least the coldest part of the Cold War. Fine, let's talk to Putin. Do we need to pay $1 billion to join a peace board to do that? Probably not. And I think ultimately we can signal to the Americans through many other channels that we support, their interests and their view of the world. So this is a question in my mind of how the Labour Party or Prime Minister Starmer wishes to show he is on line with Trump's view of the world and Trump's way of doing things. And I think if you look at the way that Mark Carney has been coming out and talking about multilateralism at Davos, middle powers clubbing together, that strikes me as a better way of doing things than these kind of mini-lateral Trump initiatives.
Trump also announced last night that he's reached an agreement with NATO over the future of Greenland. We've had very little detail at the moment of what that deal involves, but he says there is one. It does look a bit like Trump has climbed down from his previous threat to just seize Greenland. Michael, do you think, is it right to see this as Trump backing down, or has he quite effectively got something he wants by threatening something far worse? And if so, what's he got?
Have you heard of the acronym TACO?
Yes.
Always chickens out. Yeah, so my read on this was always that Trump was doing his classic real estate deal of going maximalist and hard to get somewhere in the middle. Now, the thing about this is if they had asked for sovereign basing arrangements, which I think is what this is, a little earlier, I don't see why that would have been a problem. I think that Greenland would absolutely have considered a sovereign basing agreement or a permanent, semi-permanent leasing agreement for 100 years.
Is that sorry, Michael? Just to understand that, is a sovereign basing agreement, is that very different from the agreement they've got at the moment, where they have bases? Apparently, sort of so many bases in Greenland that some of them are ghost towns now because they're not even filled with people.
It is different because what this would be considered is a bit like Akrotiri in Cyprus, which is British sovereign territory where British law applies. That would be the same in Greenland. The US could have that. There is no need to create the kind of hyperbolic panic that has happened in order to get that. I think asking nicely, people would absolutely have understood the US's national security concerns, the issues of China and Russia using the high north as it melts to gain position over the West or NATO. This issue about I want it, it's all mine, and pushing us to the point where we had to consider fractures in NATO. And I've spoken to US diplomats about this. It's very unfortunate because it puts a strain on all of us and makes you start having to wonder about navigating a world where the US is not a friend. But look, everybody is willing to talk to Trump and understand, the need for US power in Greenland. It's not something people oppose, but it could be done in a different way.
Thank you very much indeed. That is Michael Stevens there, Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Now,